What's up? What's up? Welcome into this special edition of the Orange Zone podcast. We have 3 people, we have 3 mics, but we only have 5 arms. We will be getting into Sam's cast/rap on this episode. I'm Tommy Sladek. Samantha Croston's dabbing. We have Rachel Culver on the producer mic. Ashley Winskowski is on vacation. We just got another Edward R. Murrow Award, regional award for Best Podcast. So thank you to the Murrow team, and we're happy to be keeping doing this. And I love when we're able to get recognized like that. So on today's episode, we are getting into SU women's lacrosse. They go down to BC again. The Kryptonite takes care of the Orange for an 8th straight time? Or is it 7th?
I think it's 7th now.
7th.
Oh, God. No, 8. Is it 8?
7.
I think it's 7.
It's 7. Okay. We'll check on that. I'll double check on that. But you guys seem confident, so let's go with 7. We're also getting into Dyaisha Fair getting waived by the Las Vegas Aces. What's up with that? That's a bummer. And then we also have a landmark settlement with the NCAA. $2.8 they're paying out to former athletes. What's the future going to be for paying players? We're going to talk about the foundation of this, the weeds we are going to be dedicating a full episode to here in the coming weeks. So let's start it off right off the bat with the wrist, Sam, because Rachel and I are involved in this story.
Yeah.
We witnessed it happen.
I would say more than just witness. I would say some people participated.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, from my standpoint, this is kind of how I view it. At this point, just with the news brain that I have, I feel like you just need kind of a nice teasable headline, because surely people have been asking me about it. She already made her on-air debut and did great. But at this point, I've been saying cornhole celebration gone wrong. You have to understand something, I think, to understand, the meat and potatoes of this story. Rachel Culver is the best cornhole player I've ever seen in my life. And so I know when I'm playing with her against others, it's going to be a competitive situation. I'm probably going to win. It's going to be an exciting time. Well, sure enough, that's what happened. Rachel and I are playing on one team. Tommy and Connor White, one of our news reporters, are playing on another team. We win, and mind you, a very tight game. I mean, down to the wire kind of situation. And I went in for what I thought was going to be a chest bump. Rachel's going to give you her side, but that's not what she did. And we fell 5 feet 8 inches to the ground. And that's pretty much how we landed in the spot where we are today. Is that pretty much fair to say, Rach?
Oh, yeah. I would say that's totally fair to say. Yeah, so that winning point hit the board. Sam and I immediately start sprinting towards each other.
Of course.
As you do
full
in a
speed.
big game like that.
Yeah, it was exciting. We got to about 3 feet away from each other, and we both found ourselves in midair, right, jumping towards one another. Like Sam said, she jumped with the intention of a chest bump. I jumped with the intention that she was going to catch me in midair, and we both ended up on the ground.
I did not catch her.
I was back to the ground. Sam was stomach on me. It was
Woo. And
our necklaces got all tangled up.
By the way, the necklace is getting fixed, so
the necklace is getting
it's all
fixed.
good. And so is the arm.
It was a car accident.
It was actually insane. I want to go out on a limb and say something that I've thought a lot about. I've gotten some shade from some members of this newsroom saying things to the effect of, well, why didn't you catch her? And I just want to say, on my best day, when I know that's coming, I truly do think I would have caught you, Rachel.
I know you would have.
I really, really do. I'm not going to throw myself under the bus like that. I don't have the strongest legs in the room. But we're talking about a short human being. Dude, I'm 5'8", like 140, give or take, depending on the day, man. I could have caught this girl.
Definitely.
But it was at the moment where I chest bumped, and I already feel her legs around me, where I'm like, there's only one way this ends, and it's not vertical.
You could hear the room go silent.
I mean, we're attempting to get the security footage, at which point we probably will not show it on this podcast, but we are attempting to get it just so we can see it all play out one more time. Because if we don't have the video, it's kind of like, what was it all for?
I do want to make it be known that although Sam has a fancy little cast to make it look like it's super serious on her end, I'm suffering from a deep bone bruise on my back. No one cared to ask about that. Now, did they?
No, people did actually ask about you. They're like, so what happened to Rachel? And by the way, it's not super serious. This is not a break. We're hoping that within a week or so, it's all back to normal. Yeah. But this is what's going to help to heal it. So thanks, everybody, for coming. There will be no follow-up questions at this time. But thank you to anybody who has reached out. I did have a few news viewers. Oh, I felt so bad for you. I'm like, well, it's kind of my fault.
It's Cornhole Memorial Day weekend.
It is what it is.
It's telling of the times of year we're in, this injury. It dates back to that. And from a third-party perspective, it was me blinking. Maybe I looked away for a second. I'm upset about the loss, and I turn around, and the winners are – it was air and then ground. And I'm like, you know what? That's what Cornhole does. And it was a great win by you guys. And
Sam, I do want to appreciate you calling me the best cornhole player in the world.
I did witness Rachel have a 4-bagger, which I've never seen before in my life.
A 4-bagger
4 in a row, and acting like it was nothing.
It's greatness. So don't look back when she becomes a professional cornhole player and say I didn't know it first, because I knew that the potential was always there. To wrap the discussion up, end of the day, none of this is happening if there wasn't cause for a celebration.
Right.
There is another important part, which is that we did win the game, and then we actually continued winning even after, with the cast included. We still could not stay away from the cornhole. We continued to play it, and we continued to win. So
it's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle at this point, yep.
And I'm glad we have a victory to talk about, as we need to get into a loss.
Let's do it.
Syracuse women's lacrosse goes down to Boston College. Final score 10-7 in the semifinals. Second year in a row that we are in this situation in the semis with BC. We are talking about a losing streak dating back to the 2021 championship game when head coach Kayla Trainer was on the Boston College staff. Gary Gate was still the head coach at SU. It's been a minute. Sam, you've had 4 days to let this marinate. What are your main thoughts moving forward?
That game in 2021 was so damn cursed, man. No, listen, it's a really, really tough situation. I think that at first, when Coach Trainer came over, people thought that somehow that would give Syracuse the advantage or the edge in this sort of ongoing rivalry, because she did have that inside insight into Boston College and what they were all about. But I have to say that at this point, 7 losses later, I'm feeling like it was really more negative than positive. I think people maybe forgot or neglected to realize at first that would also mean that now BC has Syracuse's number in some way too. And that's what's continued to happen. I mean, we talked about it a little bit even before the game, but I really do think there is something about the belief here against this particular team that is not there. Let's just say this once to say it. Boston College is a very good team, because then you see them go into the national championship game. I mean, the first time I looked at the score, it was 6-0 Northwestern.
I messaged the Orange Zone group chat and said, wow, how about this? Northwestern really letting them know who's boss.
And they got sat down, chewed up, spit out by the Eagles. And it does make you realize, and that's something that we've said already, this is a team that is just gnarly with their in-game adjustments, their no-quit attitude, their fight when they're down. Because you even pointed this out to me before this previous semifinal game, which is the fact that Syracuse in a lot of these games, I realized upon review, had been up some of the time or had been up early. But Boston College was just never out of it. And in this most recent game, I mean, listen, 10-7 to me, the score reflects the fact that the offense didn't do a good enough job. To me, to hold Boston College to 10 goals is pretty impressive. Like, there's not a whole lot more you can really ask for from one of the top teams in the country. I thought the defense did their job. I thought Schweitzer had a decent game. I think the issue here was the offensive momentum. I mean, this is a team that puts up, 12, 14, 18, 20 goals a game on all types of opponents. And to put up 7, it's never going to be enough. Like that, you're never going to win putting up 7 goals against this team, and it's their season low. So the score reflects that.
It's unfortunate they're in the ACC with them.
Of course it is.
It would be really nice if Boston College was in the Big Ten or Syracuse was ever in a Big Ten situation, because the reality is it's not going away. And this team is ending seasons for Syracuse. It's
unfortunate that the Bills and the Chiefs are both in the AFC, but that's just life. Tough nuts. It's not changing. Yeah. So you're either going to lose to the Chiefs every single year, or you're going to figure out a way to beat them. Like, to me, at some point, I'd almost find that to be empowering. It's like, you're going to face them at some point anyway. Like, I've always felt in my head, like, the day that Syracuse beats Boston College in that semifinal game, that is the year that they win the national championship. I do think they could have beaten Northwestern. I really do. But against Boston College, it's just, I mean, listen, they outscored BC in the fourth quarter 3-1, but at that point it just wasn't enough. And I expected it to be the kind of game where you were seeing them fighting tooth and nail for every single goal. It doesn't surprise me that it was a low-scoring game. We have to credit Boston College's goalie. I believe it's Shea Dolce, but she finished with 12 saves. She was nuts, actually, pretty much the entire tournament. So listen, they outplayed them. I'm not sure really what else there is to say. I think you could pull good things from Syracuse's performance, but at the end of the day, in that situation, all you want to do is win, and they just couldn't come out with it. And what do you do now? Like, where do you go from here, or whose fault really is it, or where do you place blame? That's kind of been the question that I've been asking myself lately.
That's hard to say. I mean, because it's blame. It's hard because the person I guess I'm quote putting blame on is also the coach that's gotten them to the Final Four all 3 years in her first 3 years, which is insane.
Insane. But
it has to come down on Kayla Trainer. It just does. I can't exactly put my finger on what needs to change other than they just need to win. They just need to win one, and this all goes away. And I really thought it was going to be this past weekend.
And I don't think that necessarily when I say, or maybe this is what you mean, but when I say need one and then this all goes away, the need one is the one in the NCAA tournament. It's not going to do it for me if they beat them in the regular season.
I disagree.
It's not going to do it for me if they beat them in the ACC tournament. I need them to win against them on the biggest stage. If they win against them in the regular season, but then they lose in the ACC tournament and they lose in the NCAA tournament, is that enough for me? No, it's really, really not. Syracuse won the regular ACC, that would be called what? Regular ACC championship or regular ACC season or regular season champs? Like, this was legitimately, by many accounts, the best team in the entire country. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's upsetting. It's like, it's upsetting to see them winning the awards that don't necessarily, I think, even the players would tell you, matter as much as the ones where they probably want to win. Like, why didn't they win the ACC championship? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's like
Boston College.
And right. And it's like that just can't keep on being the answer, because yes, the Syracuse, rotation and the players and the teams continue to shift, but the same thing is true for Boston College. The whole big thing a few years ago was Charlotte North. It was really, really tough to beat this team because Charlotte North was on it. But she's not on it anymore. She's a broadcaster. She's on the sidelines, man.
She's pretty good, too.
And she's great. She's actually doing really well in that role, too. All that aside, it's like, that's not the excuse anymore. They don't have their star. They're just continuing to rebuild, and so is Syracuse. So there are no more excuses as far as I'm concerned. The Charlotte North thing was a pretty valid excuse to some extent, because even though she's only one player, she was the best player in college lacrosse at the time that she was on the team, and certainly in 2021. But that is gone now.
I still think I don't care where it happens.
I do.
I don't care, because I think I think everything works out after that. And so if it happens in the regular season next year and it happens first, I think that is fine, because I do think that their win happens again then in the ACC, or it happens again in the NCAA. I think it does start in the regular season. Even if they do and they win one the regular season, then they lose again. It's brutal, but at least they got one. I'm trying to take a baby step here. I'm not asking for the full plate. I'm asking for a bite. Give me a bite. Give me a regular season bite. Rachel, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I feel like you guys, Sam, I think it's fair to say that you would rather take a regular season win as opposed to no wins, right? Like, it's not like you'd be upset by the regular season win, but you're just not. I think what Sam's saying is, like, she even if they win in the regular season, that's great, but like, it doesn't really mean much until it happens in the postseason.
Do you want to know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I just feel differently.
No. I'm saying that Syracuse women's lacrosse is the best team by far in college women's lacrosse to have never won a national championship.
I would agree with that because people do forget they were 15-1 heading into the final game of they almost had a perfect season last year until they played Boston College last and lost.
That's why the bite, and I totally see what you mean, and I appreciate that you feel differently than me. That's why the bite doesn't do it for me, though, is because it's essentially like, I feel like every year it's like they're eating the full piece of pizza. It's just like the crust, if you consider the crust the best part. And I want the crust.
Who considers the crust the best part?
I want the full experience.
Do you just tell me the crust is your favorite part of the pizza?
All right, you know what? I have something better. I'm sorry. All right, I got it.
Not all of them.
No, you're
Strike
right.
that
You're
from
right.
the record.
Sorry, strike that from the record. I got it. You know those little, have you ever had one of those little mini cones? Those
Cosmic
little mini
brownies.
cones from
the
Trader Joe's
drumstick,
has
the
them.
drumsticks.
I know where she's going with
drumsticks.
this. The little
That
chocolate
is what
part.
Yes, that is what I want.
It's a good
The
bite.
reason why I don't want one bite is because Syracuse women's lacrosse year after year eats the entire cone, but they just don't get that little last bite on the bottom with all the chocolate.
Chocolate in it.
And everybody knows that's the best part. I don't think the crust is the best part of the pizza. I'm so sorry I even brought that up as an analogy. It makes me sick thinking about the fact that came up.
Yeah, you're
Sorry.
gonna anger some people out there with that one.
Everyone, we're a team here. All the listeners and watchers at home, we're striking that from the record. That's gone. That never happened.
But if
And
it's
there's
not
a-
getting
the drumstick,
deleted.
and there's
It's
a-
staying in the show. But we as a team, we all agree, right?
And there
Okay.
was a reason Tommy brought that up, because he knew that's not what she wanted to say, and he did not want that to stick with you.
I'll be honest. I needed to make sure because it was so off-putting and just alarming.
Yeah, I'm
But
trying to like think of some way around it. Like, but what if it was a cheese stuffed crust or something? But I'm not gonna sit here and defend that because I don't agree with it. It was just a bad analogy. I should have went with the drumstick from the start.
A good crust though is great, but it's just to call it the best part. It's just not. But we forgive you.
Thanks.
We knew what you meant.
Thanks.
And let's move on.
All right.
You ready? Let's talk Dyaisha Fair real quick.
Let's do it.
So Dyaisha we've been so excited to watch her. Second round pick, 16th overall. Again, 16th overall pick in the WNBA draft. She gets 4 games into the season, finally makes her debut against Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever.
Pretty cool.
Goes 0 for 2 shooting, but dishes out 2 assists. Awesome moment. Amazing video. Check it out on X, Twitter. Just type in Dyaisha Fair debut, and you'll see the home crowd's reaction to her checking in. Like, this fan base out there was so excited to have her be a part of this mix. The very next day, she is waived by the team. And it's the reality that we knew could be possible, but one I felt pretty darn good once she made that roster to start the season. And it is the WNBA is ruthless. There's only 12 teams and there's 12 roster spots. And it's not like college where people are doing 4 or 5 years and they're bouncing. They could be sticking around for 10 or 20 years and still be the best players, which makes breaking into this league next to impossible outside of the best players in the country. Ultimately, from everything we've read, is the Aces, despite having a 3-1 start and totally being a potential championship contender again, they have defensive issues. They've been giving up the 3rd most points. And Dyaisha Fair's, the aspect of her game that needs work, and this was according to her coach, I believe, last week, was defense, learning the defense. Scoring she was impressed by, but she needed the defense. And this seemed like something where she just got the short end of the straw, where they say, we know you're our 2nd-round pick, but we're trying to go for this thing again, and we don't want to be spending time to let this develop.
Honestly, that is a tough pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
That is a tough reality because I'm sure it's all, I don't know, preparing her for something greater. I feel like Fair, we all kind of know her entire story, and I just feel like she is the kind of person who, I don't know, is relentless. That being said, I feel like she's gotten the short end of the stick a few times just throughout the course of her career, whether that's recognition or just being given a chance. She's the kind of person where I feel like if you really were able to, let's say they weren't struggling with defensive issues and you could let her develop, I think like the payoff really could be there. Like we in Syracuse, of course, all know what she's capable of. But like you said, that in a way makes you realize it more so gave me the sinking feeling of, damn, I wish they had more women's teams. I just wish the league was expanded a little bit. You know what I mean? Because I think there are some other cities across the country that could really benefit from having a team in the WNBA.
I think that day's coming.
I think so too.
Rachel, what do you think about this whole thing?
Well, yeah, I mean, going to the expansion, I think they're already planning an expansion for Toronto, I believe, is the next city that's going to be getting a team. So that would make it 13.
Yep.
That gives 12 more spots across the league.
What about like a Philly?
Philly doesn't have one.
I've
been thinking about it for ever.
Like Philly would be an awesome place.
I think Pittsburgh could be a great city to have one. Kansas City would totally buy in. There's great spots for this to happen. I think I just think there's investors and people that needed some proof.
Yep.
And the proof is happening.
It's
right
in the
now.
pudding, one might say.
It's in the pudding.
It's in the pudding, my boy.
It's a bummer. And I hope she gets picked up by another team. I think that end of the day, you want her being with the best of the best and playing with the best of the best. And I'm holding out hope because I do think she's someone that could really end up being a player in this league. And her size, people look down on, and they have her whole career, and she's used that as fuel to her fire. And from what we've been seeing on social media, she's staying positive. She's staying in it because end of the day, she's still a really darn good player. Mm-hmm. She was the 16th overall pick. But that's why this league is so harsh. And so the more it's expanded, the less we have to worry about things like this. And rookies can actually have some room to breathe and learn how to play this game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, and listen, in a way, it's like you just know. You look at someone like Fair and you know that she's the kind of person who's going to land on her feet either way. Mm-hmm. I hope that she gets another chance too. But in the off chance that she didn't, I think she'd be a great coach. I think she'd be a great teacher. I think she'd be a great mentor. Like I think I just know that in some way, shape, or form, she is going to have her hand in basketball always. Yeah. And the game is lucky to have her in any capacity.
Yep. Yeah. And that includes going overseas. That includes having a little bit of a career there. But, I don't think the door is yet closed on the WNBA, and I don't think she's going to allow it to just,
I don't foresee her leaving the States because if I have it right, that's the whole reason why, Russia, their league is opposite of the WNBA, so WNBA players can go over and play there. And so I'm sure there's kind of leagues going on at all times, but for being in her situation, I don't see her leaving because I do think there's an opportunity coming up. Yeah. Injuries happen, a bunch of things happen. So wishing Dyaisha the best, Syracuse legend. We'll see what ends up with that. And that shifts our gear back to the NCAA and paying college athletes. So last Thursday, and it was late Thursday, so really people got into it on Friday, the NCAA and the Power 5 athletic conferences reached a groundbreaking agreement that seeks to end the century-old tradition of amateurism in college sports by allowing athletes to receive pay directly from the colleges and universities they play for, but ... they still aren't employees. So let's preface it with this. We're going to get into the foundation. The roots in the weeds are going to come at a later episode because this is something that even though it's been out for 4 to 5 days, we spoke about it before the show and said, we need to read more because the articles that are out right now, right, in trying to understand this better, a lot of them are articles asking questions. And that shows you that it is so convoluted. It's complex. And we want to bring you the best that we have in ourselves and hopefully a guest that can really get our questions answered with this very it's a mess. It's a lot.
I'd also like to add that it shows that other people, even in our industry or people who cover this
for a living, are also still confused. So perhaps there are certain questions that no one might have the answers to yet, which is why we sort of are, taking a little bit of caution in our approach with this. And maybe confused isn't the right word, but just the information is not there yet. Sure. And that starts with there's the first part that we're going to talk about, which is $2.7 billion will be going to athletes who competed before July 2021, when the NCAA first allowed athletes to earn money from their name, image, and likeness rights. So from what I've read, this is 14 to 15,000 dating back to 2016. So in theory, Sam could be a part of this, having played D1 at Colgate with lacrosse. And that's one of our questions is, has that window ended? Could Sam, in theory, still try to get in and get her hands on this money coming out?
I'm going to call my dad right after this episode is over, as a matter of fact.
I like that. And so, according to ESPN, the NCAA will be hiring a sports economist or economist? Economist to build a formula to figure out how to divide the almost $3 billion. And moving forward, we could see athletes getting paid starting as early as 2025. How they get paid will be more so up to the discretion of the schools. So any open thoughts from you? I know Rachel was really in the notes, and maybe we go to her first. You want to hit us off, or you want us to toss this to Miss Culver?
You know what? Let's go to Culver first and see what she had to say, since she did write up most of the notes on this.
Yeah. My big takeaways from skimming through the articles, which, as you said, Tommy, are more so questions and hypotheticals and things that are just trying to be sorted through right now, is this move, when it first came out, I feel like we were using, even in newscasts, like as I was producing newscasts and just delivering this as news, because like I said, this stands outside of sports. This is a news story at its core. A lot of the headlines called it like a milestone movement, like things like that. But in my opinion, like, that word warrants a lot of praise that like correlates with milestone and things like that. This move, in my opinion, is more so one that the NCAA has made to kind of heal old wounds and like prevent wounds in the future. This is a move that they made in order to paying billions now in order to not have to pay billions later. I'll read a quote from Pete Thamel of ESPN, which I thought summed up all of this pretty well. No one should be cheered for paying billions just to avoid paying additional billions. College leaders took the best of a bad option, pay billions now and share the revenue, or, lawyers predicted, lose a series of lawsuits, declare bankruptcy, and start over. So this is the NCAA looking back at years, decades of old wounds, and I think I used the metaphor earlier, kind of actually ripping open those wounds further, kind of resetting what was already broken to allow for it to heal correctly. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but I think it's a long road ahead in terms of that healing. There's a lot of different outside influence that now has to come in and kind of pick up the pieces of what is already a very Wild West scenario going on in the NCAA with the transfer portal, with NIL. Now we're getting actual money involved and we're paying players. This isn't like outside donors that are paying those players anymore. This is coming from the college. So it's a lot of unknown, and there's going to be a lot of controlling of regulation. There's going to be Congress getting involved. This is deep stuff. This is not like sitting down, reading one article, walking away and understanding it. This is going to be months and months and months of research and staying on top of it to kind of see how this develops.
I mean, the one place where I could see where I guess the word milestone would be used is in this second component of all this, which is that it would create a future revenue sharing model in which schools could each distribute around $20 million per year directly to athletes. That is fantastic. I mean, that is great to think that that is ultimately what could end up happening, is that literally the money just goes directly to athletes. I do think that's the way that it always should have been. And to Rachel's point, I think they're trying to correct previous mistakes. I mean, this is kind of reaching even outside of just the discussion of the weeds and roots and whatever, but I just think in general, athletes should have been getting paid earlier, you know, even if they're not considered employees. Like, whether they're considered employees or not matters less to me than just the fact that they're going to be getting paid for their name, image, and likeness, especially some of these athletes where their name really carries a lot of weight, you know, but particularly maybe even for people who don't. It's just nice to know. I mean, always for me, it felt like a full-time job, quite honestly, like being a Division I athlete on top of going to school. And now, like, being away from that situation a few years later, I kind of feel like it's crazy that there was no kind of pay for that. I don't know. For me, I was like, my scholarship is pay enough. That is the trade-off, which I guess to a certain extent it was.
But then you learn they're hauling in billions and billions of dollars, and you say, okay.
Right. That's my point. Is like upon further review, you get a little older, you realize like, like maybe there was, more money to go around.
And I think back to just going to Penn State games as a kid or Temple, right, when I was there, and the biggest player on the team, right, their jersey would be in the bookstore or in stores all around campus, and it would just be the number.
Yep.
There'd be no name on it. And I think about all those jerseys that were sold that these players got not a dime from. And when I say billions, we're learning right now that it is billions and billions and billions of revenue that just went to the power players of the NCAA for this entire time, and that's changing. And there's understandable pushback, but where people are saying this is ruining college sports, or it's ruining what I know to be college sports. And that's the case. And I know some people are going to disagree with this, but tough nuts, man. Mm-hmm. Tough nuts. Like this day was coming for a long time, and it's finally turning. So when we say it's a landmark case, it's a landmark case because things are flipping around. They're just flipping around.
And I do think we need to be careful with like all the pats on the back and everything until we see this, like how it develops with the NCAA. I think the settlement itself, there's two main points, right? There's the settlement that goes kind of looking to the past before NIL, and then there's the future that we're looking towards, creating a revenue sharing model. With those two things, I think both were done in a lot of ways to show good faith actually to Congress, so that they would intervene against any future lawsuits that are no doubt probably going to pop up because there is so much uncharted water here. And there's so many questions, and there's so many different relationships and things that are now starting to develop and bud between people that are going to regulate NIL and the actual officials at schools and all of these things. So it's like, I think the NCAA is in a lot of ways just trying to get into good graces, and I think while this does have the grounds and the legs to benefit people in the future, I think there's a lot of questions, and it's just it's impossible to like feel so excited about this just yet because there's so much unknown.
Yep. And end of the day, the story is this case would allow, right? This offers up the opportunity for student athletes players to be getting paid starting in 2020, what looks to be 2025. So this is not there's no sign on the dotted line this is happening, but it's opening doors. Mm-hmm. And I think we're hitting the tip of the iceberg, and we're about to see the full thing come above water.
I'll end with this. I see that Rachel wrote a few questions down here. These are the kinds of things that we want to be exploring in the future. Which athletes will be compensated? Mm-hmm. Will women be paid equally to men? And are the NCAA's antitrust woes over? We don't know the answers to those questions necessarily yet, but we want to find out. Because I think all those answers are important as far as where this money will actually be going and who decides how much money certain players and athletes get.
Because I think one thing that we can all maybe not agree on, but I think there's probably going to be, and I think it should be, a base pay, a base standard pay when you sign up with that university. This is what we're giving all our athletes. And then I think the larger revenue sharing, like generating sports, like if you are a star football player, star basketball player, whatever it is, this area, star lacrosse, right? There's probably going to be more in it for you.
I think, yeah.
If it's your jersey that's getting sold, yeah.
Then you should get some of that money. Totally.
Yeah. And those jerseys are already getting sold. So we've made progress in that. But there's a lot to work out. We're going to be getting more into it. And that's our show.
It's not going anywhere.
That's our show.
Samantha Croston, Tommy Sladek, Rachel Culver, out of here. Peace.